have a tree removed.
Well, we can't go on private.
No, they would
Well,
still,
they would have to, but getting rid of it is one of the major expenses too.
yes, they would still be responsible for taking it down. But then also maybe they would clean up their brush a little bit more, if they could put it, pile it on the boulevard, you know, so the forestry department could pick it up. Maybe it would help. We talked about that quite a bit, didn't we, Rob, in our committee?
Yeah.
I have a question, just more clarification than a comment. When you're talking about incentives, you know, some of the programs that maybe Robin has talked about, community development loans, grants. Has the city done, and if it has, are results available, a survey, an ROI study? You know, we've thrown all this money into these programs, into these grants. Are we getting our money worth out of it, or are we just handing out grants? Have we ever done a return on investment saying we've invested over the last 10 years $150,000, and we can show that we still have 120 jobs for that investment?
We do have, I don't know if they've necessarily done a return on investment, but we do have the results of these loans and grants that we have. So that information is there, yes. You know, the program is split between grants and loans, and so we have to keep track of that money.
But those are just city, which grants are you, what kind of grants are you talking about?
There's
The
various
ones
grants.
that live, I mean, the ones the city gives out or the ones we get from other places?
We don't keep track of ones from other places.
Yeah.
We don't have any
See,
information.
and that's what we were
about that.
wondering, because some of them get, some of them come into town and.
We wouldn't have any way of knowing
Is
that.
there any way to at least learn anything about it?
We wouldn't have access to it. I mean, if they get a loan from, let's say, the state of Minnesota, we don't have knowledge if they get the grant or not. The state of Minnesota handles all of that. The only information we get is if it's from the city of Little Falls.
Greg, I'd like to add one thing to that list, and that is to make absolute sure that every storm drainage ditch that dumps into the Mississippi River, especially the one that's probably contaminated, that runs north of Larson Boat Company and through the industrial park, and a lot of companies that create and make contaminants, that water isn't dumping into the Mississippi unfiltered. We've got how many right now dumping into the city unchecked? Isn't it like 9, 8, somewhere in there?
Yes.
That's a problem, because we've got Lake Pepin is dying because of the phosphorus, nitrates, and other contaminants. And if we don't protect our water, we're all in trouble.
We are an MS4 city, so we have to go around and inspect our storm drain outlets. So we do go around and look at the outlets to make sure that there's nothing going in there that's a contamination. But we will put that on here and put that in the plan.
You do test the water once in a while,
We don't, not on the storm outlets, no. It's a visual.
visual test.
There's really no way to filter out contaminants from dumping into, other than a sand filter or something that's going into the Mississippi, is there?
If it's a petroleum or something, there are absorbent pads that you can put on there. Most of the contaminants are phosphorus, fertilizer that you put on your lawn. That's taken out either by a ditch, if there's grass growing up through it that will uptake the phosphorus, or storm settlement ponds. You'll see them at a lot of the new developments. They have ponds in order to drop the sediment out. So there's a number of those around town as development occurs. That is a requirement, but in the older part of town, Bank Square area, there's no requirements on those for treatment. But we are working with the Soil and Water to try to get some grants to improve the stormwater treatment system.
Does that also mean when they talk about contaminants, is that also like when a person mows the grass and they mow their grass on the street instead of in the yard.
That's against.
Isn't there an ordinance about that?
There is.
I wish someone would,
We do, when we go around and talk to them and
Okay.
let them know that they can't blow it in there because it goes directly into the storm sewer. and
right,
sewer.
right.
So when we see it, we do let them know about it.
I do that too when I'm on my walks.
Well, should we go with the dots?
Sure.
Before we lose everybody?
Annexation must have been a big topic.
Can I add one more thing here?
Sure.
Stop it. So, when we were
I just don't.
doing this survey online, one of the things I noticed under jobs, what kinds of businesses should we add? As manufacturing and all of that, but I didn't see technology. And we have Atomic Learning north of town, so we should be attracting at technology jobs. And I'm assuming that there are lots and lots of people who are kind of doing technology-based businesses, well, we do, in town already, but we should be encouraging more of it and making sure there's enough infrastructure for that.
For those of you that took the dots to do those, there's nothing scientific about this. This is just a way for us to get a general sense of what things are important to at least this group of people here tonight.
The colors don't mean anything, do they?
Not necessarily a priority, red is one, two.
No, the colors are, don't matter. Yeah, it just means that you think that that's an important issue. And like I say, if you want to put all three of them or four of them next to one, you can do that.
That's later.
But as you talk to people around the community, if they want to fill out that survey, you can encourage them to do that. Write in their comments or whatever it might be, so.
What does this mean at a sports complex convention area? What is that?
There was a comment that we had received in our group about sports complex and convention center.
Yeah, these are all based on the comments we received in that survey or what we
Okay,
got
yeah.
tonight, so we won't necessarily know what was in people's minds. but-
You might want to have some more. So, I'll give you an example. Historic Preservation Complex was held at St. Francis this past year.
Oh,
They
man.
had raised for 200 people.
I
And then you
know.
bring in other people from other places. So that's the convention center. I've seen it.
Yes. Yeah. And we need
Right. Right, they could be done on combined thing. Right, exactly.
I think if they build one exhibition, make it plenty big. Because it's more expensive to make bigger than building. I need more lost.
You only get 4. This is the one with the dots, is the.
Yes, I know. But you know, we go out to them on the money and we should. And this is what we did too. And we did it again, and next meeting we did our job.
It's you start dropping.
Yeah.
Ideas.
That's how we, that's how
I
we.
think it's a combination, sports, community center, convention center.
Yes, I know. And we're on the quality board, and so
Is it too late to add one more thing? We need a citizens panel board that meets monthly with citizen concerns.
I understand you're doing that as well.
Yeah, we're just finishing it.
we were in the small space.
That wasn't a very.
But then we,
I came up to City Hall and I got a card.
so there was a lot of things.
Well, no, there was the whole thing.
Work part-time. And take home more money.
I do get what she said.
But,
Notice there's a lot of community center,
I really started to.
convention center.
My wife.
The way I envision it is
Right. Oh, that's just that one.
community and convention center is almost cheap. And it serves more of a purpose. It's in that community center needs to be a convention center. That's all the council They don't have school sports.
Those are the kinds of plans that are. So I think they need to do some base work.
Community centers have all the spots set up. They have three categories. If you're really good, average, below average.
I saw two.
We're not the scientific locals. They have restaurants, they have daycares, they have convention center. It's not pretty nice. And it's kind of the hub of the community.
Well, homeless shelter over there. It's a homeless shelter, it's not the soup, and I've seen them do it. And I'm like, but you're convention. You can have them put it on.
Just so that it's in there, so in case nobody else made the request, and I've made this request already of the city, but I'd like to add that La Berger and Mill Park be made overnight primitive campsites to bring in tourism.
That's why I said.
We had that discussion even before I knew who we were. We just keep spinning our wheels.
We only mold.
Well, even City of Motley, Wadena, where the bicycles came from, they stayed in the city park. But we didn't have a place for them to stay in a city park because we don't allow overnight camping. And that's a shame.